My son Max, 9-year-old, has a best friend, Felix. Felix has a half-brother, Miles, that is only 6 weeks younger than him. My son is also friends with Miles. He just gets on better with Felix. He has another half-brother who is 7 months older, 2 half-siblings that are teenagers, and a 6-year-old full brother. None of the moms are still with the dad. Felix's mom doesn't work and looks after Miles after school. She also fairly regularly has Max over for playdates. On the occasions where I have asked if Felix wanted to come to our house after school, his mom has requested that I also take Miles, with her reasoning being that it would be unfair to Miles to invite one but not the other, and I wouldn't have if they were twins, I would. To me, it always just feels like she's trying to saddle me with another kid so she doesn't have to look after the one that's not hers, without having the other to entertain him. I think that Max and Felix deserve some time to play just with each other without a third kid hanging on. This has now happened 3 times where I've invited Felix over and had to also invite Miles. Last week, I invited Felix over after school on Friday and let her know it would be Felix only. She requested that if I wanted to have only Felix for a playdate, that I have him over on the weekends instead of the weekdays, as Miles would be at his mom's on the weekend anyway. She explained Miles would be home alone at her place without his brother on Friday night. She says he'd be bored and would probably feel rejected. She says he, magically, wouldn't mind on the weekend just because he's at his own house. When I brought up she has another son Miles could play with, she told me it's not the same. I told her I couldn't do the weekend because we are busy. She asked about the weekend after next, and I informed her we are busy most weekends as all my kids play competitive sports. She told me I could have both on Friday or neither. I told her it would be neither and hope that she's happy trying to destroy her son's relationship with his best friend. At which point she invited Max over on Friday. I told her no because I had fun things planned for my kids and her son if she would let him come alone. We went back and forth for a bit over text. At one point she said that I don't understand what it's like balancing a tricky family dynamic. I told her it's not my fault she decided to be 1 out of 4 of some guy's baby mamas. She replied, "I'm glad to finally know how you really feel about my family," and added that my son would not be invited to her house in the future. I told her it was probably for the best as I shouldn't have really exposed my son to such a messed up family situation in the first place. Although my husband agreed about me putting my foot down regarding the mom's insistence on Miles always being invited, he has said I handled the whole thing wrong and I was a jerk for insulting their family. I'm not sure I agree. She knows her situation is messed up. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I told her it's not my fault she decided to be 1 out of 4 of some guy's baby mamas. You are the jerk for that. You lost whatever high ground you may have had. I told her it was probably for the best as I shouldn't have really exposed my son to such a messed up family situation in the first place. Great. Keep being a butt. Ruin your son's friendship. Well done, OP. Comment 2. You are the jerk. There was literally 0 reason to bring your feelings about her family into this. For what it's worth, I agree there's no reason to have Miles over every time, but it is hard to manage kids' emotions. I'm sorry for any inconvenience, but I can't take both boys, is all you had to say. Now for the update. Thanks for all the comments on my last post. So things have gotten even messier since then. Last Friday, I thought the drama with Felix's mom was over, but boy, was I wrong. I found out from Max that Felix had been crying at school because he missed playing with him. That hit me hard. I felt terrible, so I decided to swallow my pride and texted Felix's mom to sort things out. But before I could send the message, I got a call from the school. Turns out, Felix and Miles had gotten into a fight at school. A real fist fight, which is totally unlike Felix. The school said it was over something to do with playdates and feeling left out. I couldn't believe it. I felt responsible, like my argument with their mom had spilled over and affected the kids. I went to pick up Max and there was Felix's mom, looking as if she hadn't slept in days. She apologized for the fight and said she wanted to make things right. She suggested that maybe we could alternate Fridays. 1 week Felix could come over and the next Miles could. I was hesitant, but I agreed, thinking it was a step forward. But here's where it gets crazy. The next day I got a call from another parent, one of the other baby mamas. She told me Felix's mom had been bad-mouthing me to the other parents, saying I was trying to break up the siblings and that I was a bad influence on her kids. I was shocked. I thought we were on the path to fixing things, but behind my back, she was stirring up trouble. Feeling betrayed, I confronted her. She denied everything at first, but then she broke down and admitted it. She said she was just stressed and took it out on me. I didn't know what to believe anymore. My husband said maybe we should just keep our distance for a while, let things cool down. But Max was so upset about not seeing Felix, I didn't have the heart to cut ties completely. And just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, the school called again. This time it was about Max. He had been caught cheating on a test. And when they asked him why, he said it was because he was too worried about Felix and Miles to study. I was floored. My kid cheating because of all this drama? I had a long talk with Max about honesty and how important it is, even when things are tough. He seemed to understand and promised it wouldn't happen again. I grounded him for a week. No video games, no TV, just to make sure the lesson stuck. The aftermath of all this has been a real eye-opener. I've been trying to keep things civil with Felix's mom for the kids' sake, but it's like walking on eggshells. Every time I think we're making progress, something else happens, and we're back to square one. Just yesterday, Felix's mom called me out of the blue. She said she was sorry for everything and that she wanted to start fresh. She even invited Max over for a playdate with just Felix, no strings attached. I was wary, but Max was over the moon, so I agreed. But then as Max was getting ready to go over, Felix's mom sent me another text. She said she had to cancel because Miles was feeling sick and she didn't want Max to catch anything. It felt like another excuse, another letdown. Max was so disappointed and I was furious. It's like she's playing games with us and I'm tired of it. I haven't told Max yet, but I'm thinking of just calling it quits on this whole friendship. It's causing too much stress for everyone involved. But then I see how much Max misses Felix, and I just don't have the heart to do it. So we're stuck in this toxic cycle and I don't know how to break free. Thanks for reading. My dad marries his girlfriend and tries to force me into stepfamily vacations. So I book a solo trip and leave them all behind. My parents divorced when I was 16 years old, male 16, and then I lost my mom 4 years later. My dad was already in a relationship with Emily when my mom died. Before my mom died, I split time equally with both parents. And before she died, we went on vacation with the extended family. This was something that, after mom died and my grandparents went for grandparents' rights visitation, the courts ordered to happen every second week of June, just like it had before my mom died. My dad hates this because he feels like all this should be his decision. When he and Emily got married and they bought a house for the 5 of us, her 2 kids, it became a bigger deal because things needed to be planned around both sets of schedules. I now have half-siblings as well. My dad and Emily try to take a vacation with all of us every year. They always have to plan it when Emily has her kids and when I don't have a day or 2 with my extended family. I don't really like vacations with them. My dad is way too uptight about vacations, and he tries to have a plan for every single second and is so annoying when things get delayed. It happens sometimes, but my dad acts like it's such a big deal for a 5-minute delay in something. My step-siblings and I aren't that tight. We don't interact with each other, really, and I don't really care if I get to be on vacation with my half-siblings. I'm not sure I'll ever care if we're close, so seeing their faces light up and stuff isn't fun for me. But my dad thinks it should be. So the vacation issue comes from 2 things. My dad and Emily don't like doing big stuff when my step-siblings are with their dad. They prefer us all to miss out on an experience than go without them, even if they get to go with their dad. This bothers me. Christmas markets and stuff are things I love, but sometimes we have them for limited periods, and my step-siblings are with their dad. I have gone with my grandparents when they get their visitation, and it bothers my dad. He tells me I should save it for our family. The other element is the actual vacation thing. My dad always said he wanted me to save my first time going to Disney World or Universal Studios for when he and Emily can afford for our stepfamily to go. I went to Disney last June and I went to Universal a few years ago. My dad decided Hawaii was for this year's vacation and they booked the tickets and then decided to surprise us. But he remembered after the announcement that I have been to Hawaii more than once with my grandparents because my grandma's best friend is Hawaiian and she always lets us stay with her. He lost his temper with me after realizing and told me I should be saving spots like that for us to go. He said I am missing out on truly amazing first-time vacation experiences by going with my grandparents instead of my nuclear family. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm sorry that your dad is so insecure about what his stepkid's wife think of him that he's making you miserable. The fact is you're missing out because you have a dead parent. All the grandparents' trips in the world aren't going to make up for the fact that you're lacking a parent who could actually advocate for you. This is his problem. He's going to lose you at this rate by being a selfish, controlling AH. Why don't you get to have a supportive dad in your life when your step-siblings get both parents and your dad catering to them? Not the idiot. Comment 2. Jealous much? I'm sorry that your dad is not willing to prioritize your happiness over his wish to have a blended family, but you can't not go with your mom's side of the family on vacations. It's also ridiculous that you can only go to events like Christmas markets if the steps are present, yet they can go with others. That's unfair. You're not the idiot, but do ask your dad why it's fair for the steps to go to an event on their own but not you. Now for the update, thanks for all the comments on my last post. Things have gotten even more complicated since then. Just last week, my dad blew up again. This time it was over something so small, but it felt like the last straw for me. We were all at dinner, and I mentioned how I was looking forward to the school trip to the local science museum. I've been there a dozen times, but I love it. My dad got all red in the face and said, "Why do you always have to do things before we can do them as a family?" I couldn't believe it. It's a school trip, not a family vacation. But he was serious. Then 2 days ago, Emily's kid's dad had to cancel his time with them because of a work emergency. So my dad and Emily decided we should all go to the Christmas market that night. I reminded them I had plans with my grandparents, but my dad insisted I cancel. He said family comes first, and I needed to understand that. I felt trapped. I love my grandparents, and they've been a huge part of my life, especially since Mom passed. But my dad was pushing so hard. I ended up going to the market with them, and it was as awkward as I expected. My half-siblings were excited, but I just felt out of place. I missed my grandparents and the simple joy we shared at these events. It was clear my dad and Emily were trying to create this perfect family image, but it felt forced. Yesterday, things escalated even more. My grandparents sat me down for a serious talk. They told me they were considering moving to be closer to my uncle in another state. They were worried about me and wanted to make sure I'd be okay with it. I was shocked. The thought of them moving away was terrifying. They're my rock, and without them, I'd be stuck in this tense house with my dad, Emily, and the kids. I had to make a choice. I could ask my grandparents to stay, making them give up on a move that would probably be better for them in the long run, or I could suck it up and deal with my dad's controlling ways. It was a hard choice, but I told my grandparents to do what was best for them. I couldn't be the reason they gave up on a happier life. But then my dad did something unexpected. He sat me down and apologized. He said he realized he'd been too harsh and that he was trying to make up for lost time with me. He admitted he was jealous of the relationship I had with my grandparents and that he wanted us to be closer. It was a side of him I hadn't seen before, and it threw me off. We talked for a long time, and I told him how I felt. I said I needed space to enjoy things on my own and with my grandparents. I told him that trying to force a perfect family was only pushing me away. To my surprise, he listened. He even suggested we start doing one-on-one activities, just the two of us, to build our relationship. So we're trying that. It's going to be a slow process, but it's a start. And my grandparents, they're still moving, but we've made plans for me to visit them over the summer. It's not going to be easy, but I feel like there's a bit of hope now. Thanks for reading. My in-laws invite themselves over for 10 days of renovations and cause chaos. But I put my foot down and kicked them out to teach them a lesson about boundaries and respect. I, 28-year-old female, live with my husband, 31-year-old male, our 18-month-old baby, and 2 cats in a small 969 square foot apartment. My in-laws all live together: father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, single mother with 2 kids, brother-in-law, and his wife, which is about 15 minutes away. We're from a small country, so you can get from one end to the other in about 45 minutes on average. Their house will be undergoing upgrading works for approximately 10 days at the end of the month. The rooms will be untouched, only their toilets will be off limits. However, there will be portable toilets set up on the ground floor and makeshift toilets in their house overnight. So while inconvenient, it's still manageable. My brother-in-law is generally independent and will be staying with his wife's family, but my sister-in-law heavily relies on her parents to care for her kids, so they often move as a group. Last week, my mother-in-law called my husband to share her concerns and requested to stay with us. He casually dropped the bomb today that they'll be staying with us. At first, it was under the pretext that he's asking for my thoughts. But through probing, I eventually found out that he has already agreed to house them before consulting me. For context, my husband is the youngest child and, unfortunately, a habitual liar. He has difficulties saying no to his parents and setting boundaries as he thinks it's disrespectful. For example, on the night I got out of the hospital after giving birth, the father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and 2 kids decided by themselves that they will stay over because they couldn't trust us with our baby. They stayed for 3 days, which was hellish. I couldn't get my rest or bond with my baby as the kids were screaming around. Example 2, they fed my 2-day-old newborn honey while I was resting inside because of an old tradition, and my husband just let them. Example 3, when my newborn was 2 weeks old, they invited about 20 people to my house to see the baby. I told my husband to give us a couple more months to rest and adapt before we host people, but during the phone call, I saw how he struggled to say no and how both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law shut him down almost immediately. There are many more scenarios where they've overstepped my boundaries, so I gradually reduced my interactions with them and only meet once every other month to protect my peace. But I've always assured my husband not to let this affect his own relationship with his parents, that he is free to visit and hang out with them anytime with the baby, just without me. So as you can imagine, 10 days under the same roof is way too much for me to handle. Plus, my husband is a firefighter and works shifts while I work from home, so I'll be the one hosting them most of the time. I refused firmly and tried to justify my decision using the above examples I listed. He didn't take it very well. I told him he could use my name and paint me out as the villain if that'll help him refuse them, but he felt like I had no empathy and respect for his parents. Perhaps that is true given how they didn't respect me either, but now I'm feeling guilty and not sure how to navigate this situation. Part of me wants to stand firm to protect my sanity, while another part feels bad. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Where exactly are they going to be staying? How is sleeping in where, your living room, going to be any more comfortable than sleeping in their own house and using a portable toilet? You need to put your foot down on this and not let up. Comment 2. They fed a 2-day-old baby honey? Holy frick, I know a family where the grandma did that, and the daughter is now in her 50s with the mind of a 6-year-old. Not the idiot, and I can't believe you didn't go no contact after that like holy shoot, lady. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since my last post. So the in-laws' house renovation started, and despite my protest, my husband's family moved in. It was chaos from day one. The kids were running around and my work-from-home setup turned into a makeshift playroom. My sister-in-law, bless her, tried to keep them in check, but it was clear she was overwhelmed too. Then the unexpected happened. My father-in-law, who's always been the rock of their family, had a health scare. He collapsed one evening and we had to rush him to the hospital. It turned out to be a minor stroke. The doctor said he was lucky, but he needed rest and couldn't be stressed. You can imagine how that went down in our tiny apartment. Meanwhile, my husband was pulling double shifts at the fire station. He said it was because they were short-staffed, but I knew he was avoiding the chaos at home. I felt abandoned, to be honest. It was like I was suddenly a single parent, juggling my job, a baby, and a house full of guests. One day I caught my mother-in-law snooping through our bedroom. She claimed she was looking for extra blankets, but I knew she was judging our lifestyle. It was the last straw. I confronted her, and we had a huge argument. She said I was ungrateful and that family should always come first. I told her privacy and respect were non-negotiable. In the midst of all this, my brother-in-law's wife called. She was fed up with him staying at her parents' place and demanded he come home. He tried to mediate between us and his parents, but it only made things worse. My sister-in-law was caught in the middle, trying to care for her kids and our recovering father-in-law. Then one evening, my husband came home early. He had a serious look on his face. He sat me down and said he'd been thinking a lot about our situation. He admitted he'd been a coward, avoiding confrontation and lying to keep the peace. He said he couldn't let his family tear ours apart. The next day, he did something I never thought he would. He told his family they needed to find another place to stay. He explained that while he loved them, he had to put our family first. There were tears and shouting, but he stood his ground. My sister-in-law took the kids and went to a friend's place, and my mother-in-law reluctantly agreed to stay with a cousin. It's been quiet since they left. My husband and I are working on our communication, and he's been more present. The father-in-law is recovering well, and there's a newfound respect between us. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.